Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Scyushi and today I wanted to talk about Assassin's Creed Shadows because there's actually been these official blog posts that have been highlighting various aspects of the gameplay. And not only that, but they've had like these really short clips showing the gameplay as well. Right now in this video, we're going to be talking about stealth and combat, although they do have some planned blogs that are going to be coming closer to release probably about exploration and some other stuff. The reason I wanted to make a video talking about this is because if I'm being fully candid with you guys and gals, I was stoked for this game even before it was delayed. I like Ubisoft and I like the open world RPG games because I like grinding things. But the one thing that I really like about Shadows is it's an open world game in Japan. Ghost of Tsushima is one of my favorite games. Shadows is probably going to be better, although maybe varying in quality to a lot of people. But the main thing was when they finally showed off the gameplay, I was really interested to see them almost taking a step back to the good old days of Ubisoft and Splinter Cell in particular, because I loved stealth games growing up, and the stealth actually looks really, really cool and dynamic and more interesting in Shadows versus just hiding in a bush and whistling for people. So what we're going to be doing in this video is I'm going to kind of just skim through these blog posts and just give you guys like the brief summary of what they're actually talking about, because otherwise I'll put a link in the description and you can read them for yourselves. The reason why most of you probably haven't even seen any of this stuff is because there's so much clickbait and controversy around this title, and frankly speaking, I just don't think that anybody is looking at the official articles because everyone's just so busy making their rage bait videos talking about Ubisoft sucks and all of that stuff. So this main article is going to be focusing on stealth, and as such, it's going to be focusing on Naoe, the female protagonist of the game. They do mention in this post that Yasuke, the other guy, is going to end up having some form of stealth, but it's not going to be as in-depth as hers. So they go on to say that the first obvious change is that you won't have your eagle companion, but they do mention that you will still have eagle vision so that you can see enemies through walls. All of this is to say you have an observe mechanic that they say will end up giving you additional information, allowing you to identify targets, tag and monitor enemies, and highlight lootable stashes and collectibles. It's basically the same as all the previous games, but there is a little bit of gameplay here. So if we take a look at this, you can see that she just ended up marking those baddies. And I like how they don't just immediately start attacking, but you can see all of the loot available in that area as well. That's really cool because I haven't actually seen these clips. I wanted to save it for this video. Oh, I see. So the observe is actually separate from eagle vision. Oh, my mistake. They say that eagle vision is a more dedicated stealth mechanic this time, encouraging you to slow down and take a moment to better visualize enemies and relevant gameplay objects. So let's take a quick look at this and see. Yeah, so it's, you know, the same as the Ghost of Tsushima vision or whatever. So it allows you to see where all the enemies are and such. I'm also really curious if we're gonna see one of my favorite mechanics from Ghost of Tsushima was when you were on a higher plane, literally on a roof, any enemies that were lower than you couldn't detect you. I know it's unrealistic, but it made for some really, really fun gameplay because at the end of the day, it's a video game, right? One of the most notable changes that is actually crazy is, you know how in the Assassin's Creed games, normally you hide in a bush and that's what makes you invisible? So hiding in shadows makes you invisible to enemies in this game. So lighting is so much more important. Nighttime is actually like gameplay function now, which I love. Putting out like light sources is something that is suddenly important again as well. Like all of this is stuff that I, as a Splinter Cell fan, have been craving from Ubisoft. They're supposed to be making the remakes of the Splinter Cell games. I really hope we hear about it sometime this year, but I digress. They also mention the importance of noise. So sprinting, obviously very loud, crouch walking, very quiet. I also love that they have the in real life lore Nightingale floors, which they explain better than I could, but these were floors that were specifically designed to creak when someone steps on them so that it would prevent like people sneaking around and intruding. So let's take a little peek at this. I don't know why the resolution is so bad, but I guess it's just because it's just a little testing gameplay. Oh, dude. See, look, she's got the silhouette around her because now she's in pitch darkness. Oh my God, bro. I'm sorry, I can't get over this. I'm so stoked for this game and the fact that sneaking is actually going to be prevalent. As we've also seen in some of the gameplay, you can finally go prone, which I love. It allows you to reduce visibility to enemies even further, whether you're on the ground, rooftops, or underwater, as we ended up seeing with the Now Way gameplay. During the last official showcase, she went prone underwater and actually used a breathing reed, which was just so freaking badass, dude. Like, I'm sorry. Now, as you can see right there, you are still kind of waiting for canned animations, but at the very least, like, that's still cool. You know, the fact that you can prone and the fact that you can roll while you're proning. So they do go over the Shinobi and Assassin arsenal. So I'm assuming this is most of all going to be Naoe's abilities. So it says that she doesn't have to rely on her stealthy moves alone. She has 4 primary tools: the smoke bomb, which allows you to escape or assassinate low-ranking enemies without being seen. They do go into a bit more detail later with the smoke bomb in saying that a higher level enemy, or more particularly a samurai, which is a trained warrior, won't actually fall for your tricks, because that's kind of what shinobi do, is they use like distraction. You know, it's kind of like a magician, like look over here, but when secretly the trick is actually over here. And in this game, that's an assassination. So a samurai, once they're more aware of your presence, is not going to fall for that stuff. And they actually mention a little bit later that if you throw a smoke bomb, a shinobi or a samurai will just run away from the smoke. So you can use that to your advantage to like lure them into, you know, aggressively push them towards like a choke neck or like traps and stuff. But anyways, there's going to end up being shinobi bells, which you can use to distract enemies, kunai, which are extremely sharp throwing knives that can one-shot kill most enemies, and then shuriken, which are momentarily stunning enemies, which is kind of weird because it's also a violent weapon. But let's take a peek at this. I assume that's the smoke bomb. Yeah. So the samurai are the ones that ended up moving out of the way, and then the common guard just didn't care. Absolutely awesome. Now, another thing that they mentioned here is new ways to hide and kill. So since Naoe is very small in her stature, she can squeeze through tiny wall cracks and hide inside some small storage boxes and so on and so forth. This is really interesting to me, because I'm assuming the other protagonists won't be able to do that. And I think that's really cool, especially with the co-op that is planned for this game. We don't know any news about it. They just were like, hey, you know what? We're gonna be working on a 2-player co-op that will release in 2025. I really hope it's full open world co-op rather than just missions, but the dynamics of having both of the characters actually have completely different functions, again, reminds me of old school Splinter Cell with spies versus mercenaries. They also mentioned double assassinations come back, no surprise there, but the difference is that she's going to end up using a tanto and her hidden blade, so that's kind of cool. They also mentioned that you can grab enemies and direct them for a short amount of time, so they say that you aren't going to just have a canned animation of assassinating a dude and pulling them into a bush. You yourself are going to have to grab them, bring them into a hiding spot, and then kill them yourself, which I'm assuming this gameplay is going to show, which I think is really cool, especially if it functions well. Just because, again, moving corpses, yes, please. Did I see what I thought I saw right there? Oh, it was assassinator loot. Lame. The only reason I'm saying that is I wish I could pick up corpses, dude. They also go into a little bit more detail when you're invading like an enemy compound. There's going to end up being servants, which are non-lethal enemies, but they will sound the alarm or bring guards to see you. Oh, that's interesting. So they say when you're in castles and fortresses, different parts of them are going to act as individual arenas. So what they mean by that is if you get caught, like you're sneaking around and you get caught in one section of the castle, you can still continue through the rest of the castle once you've defeated them and whatever, and you won't have been detected in those other areas. So that's neat. Another cool mechanic that they talk about is how if you do end up getting detected and then you disappear, the enemies will end up going in pairs to search for you, and they'll also be a lot more alert and on guard. So they go in to say that when enemies are more alert, Tactics like whistling to lure them out will only increase their suspicion and thus their ability to spot you. Samurai, on the other hand, once they're alerted to you, won't fall for any of your tricks, as I mentioned earlier. And they do go into a little bit more detail here talking about the progression system, stating that your hidden blade will have various upgrades, you know, typical assassin stuff, skill tree, whatever, all good stuff in my mind. I love the grind. But basically they're saying if you're fighting stronger enemies, you might not be able to one-shot them if you don't have a strong enough hidden blade. There's going to be 3 different options, either killing them outright, dealing a percentage of their health, or having your assassination outright denied. So I'm assuming this is going to be showing that. Maybe it's just showing a denial. Basically, if you're in a region that's too difficult for you. Okay, there. So it took out 2 tiers of the health. And then this guy's just going to straight up deny the assassination because he's too strong. That was slick. Yasuke, on the other hand, they do say can be stealthy when equipped with his bow, but I guess it basically means that he can't really sneak, because that's all you can really do is just shoot enemies from a distance. And I mean, that's the thing, right? Is you don't necessarily want to use him for stealth. That's kind of the point of his character. And I think that that dynamic is going to actually be fantastic for the game myself, because it's going to allow players to swap between them on the fly to essentially make the game more interesting, you know, because not everybody wants to stealth all the time, myself included, but I think Naoe is just a much more interesting character to me than Yasuke. So moving on to the next article, which is going to be focused on combat, and this kind of surprised me because a lot of the combat seems like it's heavily inspired by Ghost of Tsushima and a little bit of Elden Ring, a little bit of Souls-like in there. Like they go over the offensive basics, which is a light attack, heavy attack, and posture attacks. Light attacks will have certain enemy archetypes just power through them. They won't care and they'll still just attack you. Whereas heavy attacks are going to deal heavy attack to most enemies and useful to stagger them and create some space around you. Oh, interesting. A light and a heavy attack are actually their own independent buttons, and you can do a posture or charge attack of either of them. That's cool, because usually light attack or heavy attack is just the same button, but one is holding it for longer. But that's cool. So I guess you could get like a quick posture attack in if you don't have the opportunity to do a heavy one. So let's take a peek at the little bit of gameplay here. I also realized the reason these clips look gross, obviously they haven't rendered them out very well. But they also, wow, that was slick. They also have motion blur on, which I hate. Dude, that looks so slick. You know what this reminds me of? The combat? Kind of Rise of the Ronin, which was a really good combat system. Under certain conditions, such as a perfect dodge, an enemy can put into a vulnerable state for a short window where you can deal devastating damage. Okay, yeah, like a quick counter or whatever. That's neat. They also talk about how the defense abilities of both of the protagonists are going to be slightly different from each other. So both of them are going to end up having a dodge, a directional dodge. Naoe doing a Dark Souls dodge roll while Yasuke just doing the quick step from Bloodborne. That's dope. They also go into talking about parry and deflection. So they both have the same mechanic under a different umbrella. Yasuke's parry happens on a straight line. When a parry is successful, the enemy bounces back, opening themselves up for a counterattack. Naoe, on the other hand, requires similar timing, but sees her pivot to either side of the enemy, deflecting their attack away from her. Let's just take a look at the gameplay example here. So this is going to end up being his parry, and then her parry is pushing to the side. That's cool. It's a subtle touch, but I like it. Oh, crazy. And Yasuke is the only character that can block. The block will also allow you to stop incoming attacks like arrows and kunai, except for unstoppable attacks, which are detailed further below. There are going to end up being skills and abilities. All right, let's see what we got here. Some of them are active abilities triggered manually. Some are just combo variations or extensions. Yeah, all of the stuff that's out of the skill tree. Gaining levels or defeating specific foes will reward you with mastery points, which you can spend in different mastery trees to unlock weapon-based skills and abilities, amongst other things. Dope. So you got to go out of your way to kill certain enemies to get actual like weapon buffs. That's cool. Also, oh my God, I didn't know we had that weapon on Yasuke. Beautiful. Oh, hell yeah. My beloved Naginata. Dude, I like that way more than using like the club weapon. That's so cool. Then they have a part where they just go into a bit more detail about each of the different characters, kind of just being different. So that's his quick dodge. That's probably a heavy charge attack. Brutal assassination, love that. Can totally see the Ghost of Tsushima influence here. Yes, please, more. Both protagonists have a couple different weapons. Naoe's got a katana, which, yes, I want to see this. Also, here's something that they kind of teased and talked about in a different post, which I think is awesome. God damn, her animations are slick. All the kicking and stuff. There's dynamic weather in the game, or seasons, that will happen over time. The interesting thing is that ice, like winter, is going to end up freezing lakes over. So now that's an area where you can't prone under the water to stealth. There's also the Kusari Gama, which is the ball and chain weapon that we've seen in some of the trailers. I haven't really seen any gameplay with it, so this will be interesting. This is supposed to be like her area, like handling more than one enemy type of ability. I like how the combat seems a little bit more aggressive. It's my first time seeing these gameplays, and I'm already sold on this game anyway, so it's just, yes, this looks dope. Then there's also the Tanto and Hidden Blade, which I assume is just going to end up being more fast. They mentioned death by 1,000 paper cuts, so you can get like some crazy combo going. Very cool. And then Yasuke has a long katana. Okay. Oh, nice. Dude, it's so beautiful too. I just wish that it was rendered at higher resolution so I could actually see it instead of it looking so gross, but Jesus Christ. Brutal. Oh, and then they briefly talk about the Naginata and then the Kanabo, which is his big club that we've seen before, but they don't show any gameplay for it. And then they talk about the Yumi bow, which I'm assuming this is going to be the same clip that they showed in the stealth section. Yeah. He is also going to have access to a rifle. Well, that could be funny. They mentioned that players gain experience through combat, earning mastery points that can be spent on their favorite weapon type to unlock new abilities. Now, I wonder if that means you're going to gain XP for the weapon that you use, or if they're just saying you gain XP and you can spend it on whatever you want. I do appreciate that they go into saying some of the enemies later on in the game will actually have like unique abilities to them. It's not just gonna be like difficult number scaling. So there's outlaws, soldiers, ronin, samurai daisho, guardians. Each of them kind of has their different like attack combos, I guess. There's flurry attacks, unstoppable attacks. Yeah. So this I assume is the unstoppable red attack. No, that's the flurry of attacks. So you can get perfect counters over and over and over again. Okay, so that's basically, I like how aggressive they are. It's very fast. You gotta be very reactive. Yeah, lots of this really reminds me of Rise of the Ronin, because it had a very fast combat system with a heavy emphasis on parrying as well. Like parrying every attack in a combo. They also mentioned that they have defensive actions enemies can pull out sometimes, where they could do a step back to avoid a single blow, all the way up to a lightning fast, unstoppable counter attack. That kind of concerns me because that sounds like old school Assassin's Creed garbage, where you'll try and attack a guy, but because he's a boss, he'll instant counter and there's nothing you could do about it. Maybe you could end up reacting to it nice and quickly and that would be fine. Generally speaking, the more enemies that are involved in a fight, the less defensive actions they will take. Okay, so they actually made it like a proper video game. So in a one-on-one duel, that's where it's actually going to end up having a more meaningful combat versus if you're fighting a lot of people in a group. That's actually really cool. There seems to be a lot of different dynamics like that coming to the game, and I can't wait, dude. This and Monster Hunter Wilds are gonna be my big games for February. Now this is crazy because I was just about to finish up this video and upload it for today, but they just put out the new blog post that talks about the parkour system. It does mean that this video is gonna be quite long, and I know most people won't watch it, but those of you that are Assassin's Creed nutcases like me, I know you'll appreciate it. They basically just talk about the various movements being a lot more enhanced with new animations, prone movement, a physics-based grappling hook. Okay, I was wondering whether or not the grappling hook would be physics-based. That's cool. And then they go over the controls as well. Let me take a peek at all this. Some of this is very questionable, like the fact that the X button is going to end up being crouch and prone, but also that it's going to be stance change. That's cool. So they are going to end up taking the different stances, probably similar to Ghost of Tsushima. Oh, nice. We also have a dedicated sheath and unsheath button. I like that. Man, this is like an MMO with the amount of button combinations that they have, like holding the triggers for different abilities. Also, ally abilities. Ooh, so can we actually have like animals or just like minions? That's dope. Another thing that's kind of interesting, they do confirm here that the parkour is basically the same where you hold up to climb up. But they do mention that Yasuke can climb as well, and I just realized we've never really seen any gameplay of him going up a wall. So it does say that Naoe can jump further than Yasuke and higher as well. Parkour is also going to generate a fair amount of sound when climbing, jumping, or landing. So they're saying don't do that at all times if you want to sneak, despite the fact that all of the footage they ever show is you sneaking on roofs. Yeah, it looks like the same old climbing system. I mean, you know, the animations look good, and I'm not gonna say that I dislike it. They also mentioned the traditional dodge roll when you land to avoid damage that would otherwise hurt you. You can also dodge near a ledge to transition into parkouring down. Ooh, I gotta see this. Interesting. That's not what I expected. I thought she would like slide and then you'd be on the edge and start climbing down. That's still cool though, because that means we essentially have a way to force our character to go to a lower level instead of in typical Assassin's Creed fashion, you always get like stuck on a bridge ledge or you start climbing up when you're not trying to. I also find it weird that they keep talking about like Naoe is our fastest assassin to date on her feet. Like, so they increase the movement speed of the game. Like, you know, we've been able to sprint before. That's interesting though. There is a sprint dodge. So they actually have like dynamic animations that kind of come into play depending on the movement that you're doing. Really good for escaping from ranged enemies and jumping over like small fences and stuff. Let's take a peek.
Why would someone be over here?
That's pretty cool. I like that a lot. Yeah, I like it. I mean, I'm biased towards this game, bro. They do mention that if you're sprinting, she'll kind of auto jump over smaller stuff anyways without having to do any button inputs. The main reason you would still do the actual button prompt is it's going to leave you less vulnerable to damage. Yasuke, on the other hand, doesn't have the dodge roll. He's got a shoulder tackle, which we did see footage for that a couple months back. Interesting. He basically will just shoulder check and destroy stuff that Naoe has to otherwise jump over. They also mentioned that both characters can change stances while in full sprint. Switching to crouch while in full sprint will perform a knee slide. Oh, okay, so you can do slides. And you can do the Helldiver's prone dive. Nice, we're gonna get to see the grappling hook. Let's go. Vertical ascent allows the player to climb up, descend, or pivot. Okay, so we get like full control where you can shoot it up and then you can either climb up very fast. My God, the amount of upper body strength this character would have like in actual real life. That's so slick though. Because one of the big problems that I'm and many others have run into in the Assassin's Creed games is you'd come across something like this and then it's like, oh, it's too flat a surface, so you can't actually climb up it. So you gotta go all the way around the encampment. So this seems to rectify that. I'm sure they'll still have flat surfaces that you can't grapple up and stuff at the late game to kind of force you into choke points, but I like that a lot. Oh, they even go as far as to rip off Ghost of Tsushima's like hook swing. Hell yeah, dude. The environment is quite beautiful, by the way. Dude, okay, so it's a dedicated button. That's a little bit slower and sluggish, but it still looks dope. And this is a little bit weird, but the mode switching or stance switch is basically going to change you from climbing up and down the rope to swinging on the rope. So that'll take a little while to get used to, I think. Wait a minute, wall run grappling hook? Hold on, I gotta see this. I don't know if I'd call that a wall run, but it was still slick as hell and I want it. So Shadows introduces a few new parkour subtleties that advanced players will want to know about. Here's a few of them. Stance dodges. You can do directional dodges while in a crouch stance, covering more terrain faster and avoiding potential attacks. However, Naoe is the only character that can do prone dodges. Oh. Then there's parkouring down with a backward dodge. So I assume dodging near a ledge to jump off the edge? All right. Hold on. I don't know what I just saw. Oh, so pressing the dodge button without any input does a back step. So they literally took that from Dark Souls. Parkouring down high structures safely. Okay, yes, please. I want to see how they're gonna handle this. I mean, that's just an eagle dive. I don't. You could have just ran and jumped off the ledge. It would have been more efficient. I don't. All right. The main reason I was excited there for a minute is because I thought, oh, is there gonna be a quick, easy way where I can just like super drop down? I don't really understand what they mean by unclimbable surfaces, if I'm being honest, because this isn't like a Zelda game where you can literally climb everything. You always had to have a foothold, but for whatever reason, they're acting like unclimbable surfaces is something new. Anyways, while there is supposed to be one last post that they're gonna talk about, probably in February or later at the end of this month, I gotta get this video out to you guys. I'm stoked as hell for the game. If you are as well, I'd appreciate a like at the very least. I know this video is not gonna be very popular, but so help me, I cannot wait to play Shadows.